Hey guys, it's been a while. Sorry for the irregular uploads. Probably been 3 or 4 days whenever I record this because it was meant to come out on Saturday, but then I got busy, so it's probably going to come out on Sunday because I pretty much finished this. And like where I've been busy with schoolwork and stuff like that. But the plus side is I got a new PC and like it's amazing. I'm so happy with it, and now rendering does not take me 1 hour anymore. Believe it or not, it only takes me 5 minutes, so hopefully I can record more videos. Today we have r/MaliciousCompliance. Let's get straight into the video. This one's titled, "What do you mean I can't drive my car?" I've been a mechanic my entire working life so far, and this is one of my favourite experiences. I had a customer come in complaining about a vibration. I put the vehicle on the lift and checked the front end. I found a nearly broken tie rod and a faulty rack and pinion. So basically the passenger side front wheel was not fully secured to the steering system and would soon break and cause the wheel to be completely disconnected from the steering. I told the customer how much the repair would be and told her it was unsafe to drive. She asked me to put it back together so she could leave. I told her that I could not do that because if it broke after I let her leave, I could be held liable. She started yelling and screaming about calling the cops and suing me, and how her cousin's brother knows a guy who's related to the chief of police and I'll be arrested. She calls the police and they come out. I showed the officers the vehicle and they understood the safety concern. They told me to just put the car down and let her leave. I did, and even made her sign a statement declining crucial safety repairs. She left with the most I told you so smug grin on her face. That is, until she left my property, got pulled over and her car impounded. They also gave her a ticket for reckless driving. I was so happy seeing her car get towed. Edit for clarification, the cops told her it was against the law to drive it. The state laws back then allowed me to do exactly what I did. I offered to discount the price of the repair and take payment. She still refused, and I don't care how well versed you think you are in the law, you don't know when or where this took place. And no, I won't tell you what state I am in because I have already had several people message me saying they are going to try and find my shop just to harass and blast me. This one's titled, "Restaurant employee amuses himself, delights me and my kids." Yesterday I decided to take my kids to an international chain restaurant. In this restaurant, the kids' meals come with ice cream, but you have to serve it yourself. This was a problem because there weren't any bowls beside the ice cream machine, so I thought, I know what to do, I'll simply ask an employee for some bowls, and that's just what I did. So, he turns to look at the vast array of bowls behind him, some sauce side, some entry salad side, and many in between, and we realize that neither of us knows what size the kids' ice cream is intended to be in. So he thought, I know what to do, I'll simply ask a manager, and he says, "Hey boss, what do we put the kids' ice cream in?" Without turning around, the boss says, "A fucking bowl, what do you think?" "Yeah, but what size of bowl?" The boss, with his intimate charm, tact and grace, says, "Just fucking give him a bowl." The employee looked back at the bowls and then I saw him get a big grin over his face. "I apologize about that, sir. I think it's probably these ones," he says as he hands me 2 of the largest bowls they have in the restaurant, practically giggling with glee. My children were similarly delighted. The manager walked by when we were halfway through and made a noise like a startled possum, but said no actual words. Definitely going back there. This was titled, "Was told to actually read the policy, so I did." I work for an office and we had an 8-week busy season with mandatory overtime, 12 to 14 hours a day. During this time, the company agrees to reimburse us for dinner, up to $13 meal. We just have to submit a claim with our receipt at the end of the busy season. Food options around my work aren't great, so I usually bought my dinner from home, but sometimes I was too tired to cook after a long day, so out of the 8 weeks I purchased maybe 10 meals. 3 of those meals I spent $13.50, going 50 cents over the limit. This resulted in a whopping $1.50 overage, which my manager said it was no big deal and that I could include on my expense claim. He signed off on it and everything. A few days after I submitted my report, head office emailed me saying they rejected my expense claim and that I could resubmit after I removed the $1.50 overage. I wrote back saying my manager was fine with the $1.50 overage and even signed off on it. and they responded by telling me that they do not allow overage under any circumstances, that the $1.50 must be removed or they won't approve of my meal expenses. They ended the email with the advice that I should actually read the company's policy next time. Fine, they were right and I was wrong, so I decided I'd read the policy very thoroughly before redoing my expense claim. Yes, the policy clearly stated a $13 maximum on purchased meals. Oh, and what's this? The policy also allows a $10 per dime for meals you bring from home. I very happily removed the $1.50 overage and added an additional $300 for the 30 meals I bought from home. I should read the company policy more often. This one's titled, "Can't you just unload around me?" So this happened earlier today and was too perfect not to share with you guys. I work in construction as the foreman for a new house build. The location is kinda strange. The house is 200 feet up a hill via a footpath only. All our materials have to come up this footpath by hand. It's a pain in the ass to manually carry, quite literally, an entire house up this hill. One of our saving graces is having the 2 car parking spots on the street at the bottom of the hill marked with official no parking signs. Unfortunately, there is an elementary school about half a block away, and the parents of the children seem to regularly, at least twice a day, think it's okay to park in our spots. Now, I consider myself a reasonable person, so if someone is parked in a spot and we don't have a delivery or a need to park a truck, I will let it by. If we need the spot and there's someone parked there, however, I will ask them to move nicely, and most of the time they will do it immediately, until today. I get a phone call from the lumber delivery truck that are en route to our location. He says he'll be there in about 2 or 3 minutes. I let him know I will meet him at the street and make sure he has a space to park. He's carrying all of the material to frame the roof of our house, which is a lot of really big lumber and will take easily an hour to bring up the hill. So naturally, I didn't want him parked in the middle of the street with his hazard on for an hour, when we have perfectly good parking spots for him. As I begin my trip down the hill, I notice there is a school parent sitting in her car idling. Assuming she's just waiting to pick up her child, I walk up to her car and politely let her know that she is parked in the no parking zone and we really need her to clear the parking spot for the delivery truck. She scoffs at me rudely, states back, "I'll just be a few minutes and your truck is in here. Take a chill pill, dude." Before I can respond, a giant lumber truck comes around the corner and I wave to him and then gesture towards him to the woman in the car, who has now put her window back up to ignore me. I put on the best customer service smile and wave at her through the window. She put it down halfway and angrily shouts, "Well, what?" By now the truck has pulled up alongside her car and I politely ask her again with a stronger tone of voice to move her vehicle, reminding her that she is illegally parked in a towaway zone. Then she gives me this wonderful idea. She says, "Can't you just unload around me? Jesus, it's not that hard." I give her another smile and walk away. A brilliant plan, formatting in my head. I instruct the delivery driver to park as closely to her as possible and block her in with the porta potty that is on one end of our reserved spots and the parked car that is parked just adjacent to our spot on the other end. He smiles because he immediately gets what I'm trying to do and proceeds to expertly block this lady and her car into a little 2 parking spot jail. We strap the lumber and my guys began humping the materials up the hill. Meanwhile, I called the police parking enforcement to let them know the situation. At this point in time, I wasn't trying to get her in trouble. I just wanted a record of why we were blocking part of the street so we don't get in trouble with the city. The very friendly traffic officer lets me know that she can be there in about 30 minutes and deal with the situation for me. Wonderful! As we continue to unload lumber, the child of the parent shows up, and wouldn't you know it, Mum just now realizing that the lumber truck is parked so close she can't get out of her driver door to meet her kid. She awkwardly climbs across the inside of her car and stumbles out the passenger's door, shouting, glaring looks at me and the truck driver in the process. She loads her kid into the back and begins to realize that she has no way of leaving. She comes storming up to myself and the driver and states, "I'm in a big hurry. You need to move your damn truck right now so I can go." Before I can respond, the driver gets a grin on his face and says, "Ma'am, in order to unload the lumber on the truck, we have to unstrap, and per our company policy, I'm not allowed to move the truck with any unsecure load on it, sorry. This sends her into a near aneurysm levels of blood pressure. Meanwhile, I can barely contain my laughter. Fuck your policies, I have somewhere to be, she barks back at him. And at this time, with impeccably convenient timing, the parking enforcement officer shows up and parks behind the truck. She doesn't see the officer arrive, and while the officer is still getting out of her vehicle, I just casually say, can't you just pull out around it? It's not that hard. With the biggest shit-eating grin I've ever had, I watched as she realized that I just used her line on her. Fuck you, she yells and storms back to her car, angrily clambers back in through the passenger door and into the driver's seat. At this point, the officer is walking up to myself and the driver. Before she can even introduce herself, the mum in the car slams it into reverse and stomps on the gas, crashing into our porta potty and knocking it over, and then throws the car into drive and tries to mount the curb and drive on the sidewalk. The officer, driver, and I are staring in disbelief as she gets halfway over the curb and gets stuck. I can hear her screaming obscenities over the idling truck from inside her car. The officer promptly walks up to the door of the car and orders her out. My favourite part of the entire thing is watching her face go to shock as she realises she just did all of that in front of a police officer. She gets slapped in cuffs as the parking officer calls for a second unit as she is promptly sat on the very curb she tried to drive over. She sits on the curb yelling to the now two officers about how we told her she could stay there and that we never asked her to move. The traffic officer responds that she was the one who was originally called when they first refused to move and that she already knows what's going on. When myself and the driver are giving a report to the second officer, my guys finish moving the remainder of the lumber and the driver finishes his statement and takes off to go back to the yard. By the end of the ordeal, she was arrested, charged with child endangerment. Her kid was in the back of the car the whole time, reckless driving, destruction of property, the porta potty, and driving on a suspended license. On top of all that, she gets her car towed. The kid went home with his grandparents and she went to spend some quality time in a cell. I never expected her to actually heed my advice to just pull out around it. But I think next time she'll probably think twice about parking in the towaway zone if she ever gets a license again.